thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited about the potential opportunity to be able to work with you. I think it should be really valuable for both of us.
You've been rejected.
Well, could I at least ask why I've been rejected?
Low value.
Well, I think you probably had a chance to look over my resume. Could you maybe just give me a little bit more detail? I'd love to know how I can improve a little bit.
Low value.
Okay, well, that's still pretty vague. If you could maybe just give me a little bit more, I would really appreciate it.
Low value?
Okay, well, this isn't going to work.
Google is actually by really far the largest provider of ads on the web. Even if you're gonna work with a company like Ezoic, Mediavine, or AdThrive to try to get ads on your website, most of the ads they serve actually come from Google. So getting Google to approve your website for ads is gonna be important for you to do no matter what.
Well, and one thing that we talked about that a lot of people get confused about is there are kind of two levels of approval here. There's kind of an account level approval, but then also domain specific approval. And that's where a lot of people are getting hung up now when people are getting disapproved. It's not the account level approval, it's really just your individual domain.
And in the last few months, especially, we've seen a lot of sites that before would have easily been approved, even of our own. We have one in particular that we're going back and forth on that are just not getting approved. Google seems to be really cracking down, and it's not just us seeing this. The people over at Ezoic are noticing it too.
Yeah, and so I actually had an opportunity to meet with a guy over from Ezoic, and we talked about some of the guidelines that Google actually does give us. While sometimes when you get disapproved, there's not a lot to go off of, like we talked about in our intro, but there are some support docs, and it was actually a really helpful meeting.
Yeah, I think one of the really big benefits we get out of this conversation with him, he really helped us understand not just what Google's guidelines are, but when our own members, when Project 24 members, in some cases don't get approved the first time, and then they come to Ezoic and say, hey, can you help me understand? He was able to point out some of the most common issues that we're seeing, even on sites with really good content. And so we're gonna go through those and help you understand exactly how to make sure your site has the best chance of getting approved.
I would also quickly like to mention that if you do have a smaller site with some traffic, you should really go over to Ezoic if you do want to get your site monetized with ads. You generally will see better ad rates than working with other platforms like media.net or just Google AdSense. You generally can get better and make more money that way, and they're willing to work with the small guy. So give them a check.
And we're finding that actually getting ads on your site on the early side is gonna be better for your site's growth and monetization in the long run, and get yourself earning at least a few bucks. It's gonna help with the motivation a ton. Let's dive right into it.
The first thing, duplicate content. This is one that is talked about in the industry a lot, but when I talked to Jan from Ezoic, there were some ways that he described it and a couple really specific bullet points that he gave that I had never really considered before.
Yeah, most of the time when we talk about duplicate content, people are talking about spun or scraped content, it showed up one place on the internet, now we're putting the same thing in another place on the internet. That's actually not exactly what we're talking about here. Also, there's been a lot of discussion about duplicate content not really being a ranking factor anymore. A lot of stolen content is outranking the original content in some cases. But when it comes to getting approved for monetization for ads, it is a really important factor. So let's talk about what this actually looks like, because when we talked to Jan, he gave us a lot of these that are actual issues, for even Project 24 members. The first one that I want to hit on real quick, I'm going to put an asterisk on. This is not one he brought up because it's not one that we struggle with, but it's one I see so much in our industry that I got to point it out. And that is the scraped and spun content. Copying someone else's article, putting it on your site, or copying the content and just changing the words so that it'll pass a plagiarism check. If you or writers that you hire are doing this, it is likely to prevent you from getting ads from Google. And the other way that this is being done that a lot of people I think are well-meaning but doing this is through AI-generated content. If an AI is writing your content, the only way they can get that information is by getting it from someone else's website, changing the words, and putting it on yours. It is spun content. It's just done in an automated fashion. So be careful relying heavily on AI-generated content. it actually could prevent you from getting ads.
The next one that Jan gave here was adding a single blog post to more than one category. And he said this is especially for smaller sites with less content on them. He said, for example, if you have a site with 3 categories and you have a single blog post in 2 of the 3 categories, Google will count that as duplicate content because it's showing them that there's not a lot there, and they want to see a site that has thicker content, more content,
More substantive, a larger amount of it. Yeah, absolutely. The next one is if you have information that's really similar, large amounts of similar information in multiple blog posts. If you were to write one blog post and cover a topic thoroughly, and in another blog post you want to cover a piece of that one, but in a lot more depth, that's great. But if we were to take, like, this shorter blog post is essentially a segment of another blog post, just repeated with different words, well, I mean, we're kind of spinning our own content. It's a duplicate. We're not adding additional value. So anytime we're going to write a second blog post, we need to make sure that that second blog post has a substantive amount of value beyond what's already on our website.
The next one that I will mention is called boilerplate repetition. That's actually what Google calls it on their Google support doc, which we have linked in the description, so you can check that out after the video. And basically what this is if you have like a disclaimer, like a copyright disclaimer or affiliate disclaimer, and it's longer or kind of meaty, they recommend just putting like a 1 sentence in the bottom of the blog post and then linking to a page, a dedicated page where you can put those disclaimers so that it doesn't look like every single page on your site has the same content.
Your affiliate disclaimer really doesn't need to be super long. But some people, because they're a part of a lot of affiliate programs and some of those programs have specific text they want, they will end up with a pretty long one. If that is your case, do exactly what Nathan said. Create a page called affiliate disclaimer, put it there, and then in the article you can say, this article contains affiliate links. Here's a link to our affiliate disclaimer. I see people doing that all the time. It's totally legit. It works just fine.
All right, the next category of problems that we run into, or that Jan sees that a lot of people are running into, is with thin content. Now, this was one that I didn't really expect. Jan said that a lot of times Google just wants to see more content in each category. And he even put a number to it, which really made me laugh because how would we know? He said that 7 blog posts in a category is about right. 7 or more blog posts is what Google wants to see. So if you have a category with less than 7 blog posts, there's a good chance you could get denied. And that one just makes me laugh because 7?
Yeah,
like,
it's
okay,
not like Google
we can
ever
do 7.
told us that.
Right.
That's not in their support document.
Right.
But that's the number. They're looking for about 7 posts or more.
Yep. And so I think it's important just to realize, like, part of thin content, I think, is not just thin per article, but thin across the board, like topically. And I think that that's one of the values. It's not the video today, but building topic clusters with your articles. You know, if Google sees that you have more articles in a category, you do gain some authority on that topic.
I think this is one of the biggest struggles that a lot of newer blogs have, is that, great, I've written 20 articles, now I want to get monetized. But if I've written those 20 articles across 5 different categories, I only have 4. 4 articles in each category. Or it could be that I haven't even bothered to categorize my posts and create a menu. And we're going to get into that in just a second. The next thing is if any of your categories are misleading or confusing. If in any way, like, somebody were to click on one of the categories in your menu and the content that comes up isn't what they would have expected, then that's going to be a red flag to Google. Another thing that we saw in the support document with kind of thin content and duplicate content, this isn't one that Jan pointed out, but it's like if you were to take a video that somebody else created, a YouTube video, and embed it in a blog post, but that's like the whole content. You put a video there and maybe have a sentence that's like, this video is about this, and that's the post. If you're doing that, you have not added original value. And that's going to get viewed as really thin or really duplicate content. But I actually thought it really interesting that that what Google's looking for when they say thin content isn't necessarily that the blog post was really thin or superficial, but that you just don't have very much of it within each of the segments of content on your website.
All right, Ricky alluded to our next category here, which is navigation. And I think we can bust through some of these pretty quick because they're pretty self-explanatory. The first one is that your menu's not built out. That's pretty obvious. If there's no navigation, how do you expect Google to even look through your articles?
Yeah, one of the biggest recommendations that we've made before you put ads on your website, we say this in Project 24, is you need to build it out and make your site look good. You want to actually take a little bit of time with the design, and part of that is the menu itself.
Yep. The next one is no categories, no privacy policy, broken or misleading links, and then just missing pages.
Those 404 errors.
Yeah, those are those errors where you come up, oh, there's no page here. All of those things are going to keep you from getting ads on your site because it just shows that it's pretty sloppy. And it just, I mean, if you put yourself in Google's shoes where they're looking through who knows how many websites a day, these are just really easy things for them to say, you know what, if they can't even get this right, what's to make me think that the content's gonna be any better?
Which is interesting because the content really is the important part of the website. And we do have a really heavy content focus, and that's what we teach you. And so some of these mistakes are happening because people are so focused on adding blog posts. But at some point, we need to slow down. We need to take the time to build out the site, add those, I call them peripheral pages, right? Your privacy policy. If you're going to have terms of service or an about us page or whatever, get those made, put them in the menu. Those kind of pages usually put in the footer menu. Build out your main menu with some categories, and that's usually going to be good enough. And you're going to be able to get ads on your website.
Yep. Okay, well, next up we have, what to do if you still get rejected.
Yeah, and before we dive into that, I want to take just half a minute, hopefully, and make you aware of an event that's coming up here. This is the Building Empires event. I will link to it in the description below. It is an online, totally virtual, and totally free event that you can, I encourage you to go sign up for. 3 days, June 7th through 9th, you're going to be able to hear from speakers like me, Miles Beckler, and lots of others who are going to be participating, representatives from Zoic, Empire Flippers, Flippa, lots of different places. We're going to be sharing some great information. We'll have some awesome Q&A panels. So I invite you to go check that out, go get yourself registered. Again, link below in the description, and I'll put it in the first comment down below.
Cool. All right, so back to the video content here. When you get rejected, first of all, it's really frustrating. As Ricky said, we have one and maybe even a couple of our sites at this point that we're working to get accepted that just haven't been yet. And it's really frustrating. I don't know how many times we've submitted this one site, probably more than 10.
Which is one of the reasons why we ended up interviewing Jan. And now that we have, I want to go fix it and submit it again, but it got put in timeout. It's oh, you've been rejected too many times. You're going to have to wait till mid-June.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that you can actually do, though. The first thing is to review the Google support doc. We've covered a few of the things that are in that document, but within the document, they have kind of these generalized things that we've gone over, but then they have even links out to other documents that kind of go into more depth of exactly what Google wants to see. And really what you need to do is you need to work through whatever it was, whether it was navigation, thin content, whatever the one word is that Google gave you, you need to go to that category in the document, and you just need to start with the top thing and just figure out if there's something missing on your site, make the change, and then resubmit it. That's that's essentially what you can do about this.
We, as well as Zoic, they've also seen lots of times where somebody gets rejected like this, and they don't necessarily make a big change. They just keep working on the site. Just keep adding content. As you fill out the content, it's going to get less thin. If you only have 20 posts on your site now, cool, go put another 10 on, and then try submitting again. And they've seen numerous times where they didn't change really anything structurally, but just putting a little bit more work into the site, creating a little more content, it was approved the next time around.
Getting monetized early on your site is awesome. It's something that I think every content creator wants, but sometimes it's just not gonna happen exactly when you want it. So just continuing to work on your site is gonna be your best option, and then every now and then just resubmit. You will get accepted if you're creating the best content possible, if you have a good, clean website. We're actually gonna do kind of a full interview with Jan. I have one scheduled out here. We're gonna do it on the Income School Tutorials YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, but you're interested in the topic, go over to that channel and get subscribed there so that you don't miss that interview.
Absolutely. We'll see you there.